Welcome to Game Changers, a new series where we dive deep into the revolutionary games and mechanics that transformed the entire gaming industry. Today, we are starting with a game that didn't just change gaming, it shattered it completely and rebuilt it in its own image. This is Doom. Before it existed, 3D shooters were barely a concept. After Doom, they become one of gaming's dominant genres. As game historian Tristan Donovan noted in his comprehensive history of video games, Doom became the center of new gaming universe with every other shooter defined by its similarities or differences to ID's creation. It is 1993. Bill Clinton has just become president, Jurassic Park is in theaters, and most PC games still look like this. Gaming was primarily a 2D affair back then. Sure, we had primitive 3D games like Wolfenstein 3D, also made by ID Software. But Wolfenstein had major limitations. All walls were the same heights, the floors and ceilings were flat. There were no stairs, no varying light levels, no outdoor areas. According to David Kushner's groundbreaking book Masters of Doom, John Carmack called these limitations arbitrary and was determined to break through them. ID Software was an unusual company. They weren't backed by major publishers. They were essentially four guys in a house in Texas: John Carmack, John Romero, Adrian Carmack, and Tom Holt, later replaced by Sandy Peterson. As game developer and historian Warren Spector observed, they were the first developer rock stars. They changed the way people thought about game makers. While publishers were pushing for multimedia experiences with full motion video and CD-ROMs, ID wanted to draw fast action. Their ambitions required pushing well beyond what PCs could normally handle. John Carmack, whom MIT Technology Review would later call the man who made 3D gaming possible. What made Doom revolutionary was primarily its engine. John Carmack created something that on 1993 hardware seemed impossible. First, let's address a common misconception. Doom isn't actually true 3D, it is what we call 2.5D or pseudo 3D. As Fabian Sanglard explained in his technical analysis, game engine Black Book Doom, the game world is actually a 2D map viewed from above. The engine creates the illusion of 3D by drawing walls at different heights. This technique combined with binary space partitioning allowed Doom to render complex environment at speeds that seemed magical at that time. In the IEEE spectrum, technology journalist Jeremy Reimer called this the algorithm that changed the gaming industry. Unlike Wolfenstein, Doom featured varying floors and ceiling heights. This meant stairs, lifts, and platforms were not possible. The engine also supported rooms above rooms, creating much more complex environments. But perhaps the most atmospheric innovation was dynamic lighting. Different areas could have different light levels, creating mood and tension. Game designer American McGee, yes, that's his real name, who later joined ID Software, remarked that Doom's lighting created a sense of dread that games simply didn't have before. All these technical achievements served one purpose: to create a more immersive, terrifying, and thrilling environment that had ever been seen in gaming before. If you play Doom today after playing modern shooters, the first thing that you'll notice is the speed. You move incredibly fast. Modern FPS games feels like walking through thick mud by comparison. According to a study in the Journal of Gaming and Virtual Worlds, Doom's player movement is approximately 50 miles per hour, a deliberate design choice to create intensity. Doom introduced the concept of a diverse arsenal that has become standard in shooters. From the humble pistol to the legendary BFG 9000, each weapon had a distinct feel, sound, and a tactical purpose. Game designer Cliff Bleszinski cited this weapon variety as a direct influence on Unreal Tournament's arsenal. The enemy variety was also impressive for the time. Each demon type required different tactics. Imps threw fireballs you had to dodge, cacodemons floated above you, barons of hell could absorb tons of damage, A 1994 Computer Gaming World Review praised how each enemy forces the player to adapt their strategy. What truly set Doom apart was its level design. In their landmark academic paper, Understanding First-Person Shooter Level Design, researchers Simon Niendenthal and Hendrik Kwarforth identified Doom's non-linear approach as revolutionary, creating a sense of place rather than just a corridor of challenges. Let's look at E1M1 Hanga, the first level most players experienced, in the influence of level design on gameplay. Game scholar Joachim Holme points out how it teaches mechanics through environments rather than tutorials. It starts simple but gradually introduces key concepts: shooting, collecting keys, using doors, and finding secrets. By the end of this short level, you understand Doom's core loop. That's masterful design. Doom wasn't just revolutionary in how it played, it changed how games were distributed and sold. ID Software released the first episode of Doom as Shareware, free to copy and distribute. Anyone could play the first 9 levels for free, then pay for the full version. According to tech journalist Stephen Levy in Wired magazine, Doom's shareware model was the 90s equivalent of going viral. The shareware model created a phenomenon. Doom spread through bulletin board systems, early internet connections, and thousands of hand-copied floppy disks. Business historian Paul Serutzik documented in IEEE Annals of the History of Computing that an estimated 15 to 20 million people played the shareware version. System administrators at companies and universities reported network slowdowns when Doom was released as employees played over their local networks. A 1994 Washington Post article detailed how universities were forced to ban Doom due to network congestions during final weeks. For many, Doom was their first experience downloading and installing a game from the internet. It showed there was a new way to distribute games outside traditional retail channels. Perhaps Doom's most enduring legacy was how it empowered players to become creators. Doom's game data was stored in VAD files, whereas all the data. ID Software made these relatively easy to modify. In their study, Player Producers: How Games Benefit from User-Generated Content, researchers Olli Sotama and Tero Karppi identified Doom as the birth of modern modding culture. Take Alien TC Total Conversion by Justin Fisher. Released in 1994, it transformed Doom into an Aliens game. Game developer Tim Sweeney, creator of Unreal Engine, cited this mod specifically as showing the untapped potential of player creativity that would later shape development tools. Almost 30 years later, Doom still has an active modding community. Even developers try to run the game on any electronic tool they can find. A 2021 article in Game Developer magazine found that more Doom VADs were released in 2020 than in any year of the 1990s, demonstrating the remarkable longevity of a game that continues to inspire creativity. Deathmatch. Before Doom, this term didn't exist in gaming. Doom coined it and defined it. For the first time, players could connect their computers and hunt each other through virtual corridors. As documented in the Atlantic's History of Online Gaming, Doom's Deathmatch mode was the key to hawk moment for competitive multiplayer gaming. Doom Deathmatch matches were social events. Friends would lug heavy CRT monitors and desktop computers to someone's house, string Ethernet cables between rooms, and play for hours. Sociologist T.L. Taylor's research on gaming communities identified these LAN parties as crucial proto-esports spaces that would later evolve into organized competitions. John Romero understood something fundamental about multiplayer gaming. Playing against smart human opponents was infinitely more engaging than facing AI enemies. In a 1994 interview with Edge magazine, he predicted that multiplayer would become more important than single player, a vision that has largely come true. Doom's DNA can be found in virtually every first-person shooter that followed it. Game studies researcher Espen Arseth called it the most influential game of the 90s, perhaps of all time. Doom led directly to Quake, which pioneered true 3D environments. Valve then licensed and heavily modified the Quake engine to create their gold Source engine for Half-Life. This eventually evolved into the Source engine, which powered Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, and Portal. Meanwhile, Doom's fast-paced action influenced arena shooters like Unreal Tournament and Quake 3 Arena. Its horror elements can be seen in games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. Even modern titles like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal deliberately return to the speed and intensity of the original. In the 2017 documentary No Clip Doom Resurrected, numerous game directors credited Doom with shaping their careers. Cliff Bleszinski, creator of Unreal Tournament and Gears of War, said, "Without Doom, I wouldn't have a career." John Carmack and ID Software showed what was possible, and an entire industry followed. But perhaps Doom's most important legacy is philosophical. It emphasized player agency and movement. It trusted players to find their own paths through levels. It rewarded exploration and skill rather than just following a script. In the MIT Press journal Game Studies, Janet Murray identifies this as the birth of player-centric design that will define modern gaming. Doom wasn't just a successful game, it was a paradigm shift. It showed what games could be: fast, technically impressive, modifiable, and social. It birthed genres, communities, and careers. Its influence extends far beyond first-person shooters. Any game that emphasizes player movement, offers modding support, or focuses on refined combat mechanics owes something to Doom. 3 decades later, we are still living in the world that Doom built. That's why it deserves to be first entry in our Game Changer series. What do you think about this new series? What games do you think should be featured next? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into gaming history, hit that subscribe button and notification bell to catch future episodes. Thank you for watching.